The Queen of Country, Loretta Lynn. You hear her name and you probably picture a sweet smile and a trailblazing guitar. But behind the scenes, there are whispers she held a secret list of her biggest rivals. The story goes that before she passed, she didn't hold back, and tonight, revealing the 7 musicians Loretta Lynn supposedly hated, along with the shocking personal stories and long-buried feuds that defined her career. Now, that's the legend. It's a story that's been traded in green rooms and on tour buses for years. The idea that Loretta Lynn, at 90, sat down and dictated a final list of her enemies is a powerful one. It definitely fits the woman who wrote Fist City. But the truth, as usual, it's a whole lot more complex and fascinating than a simple list. There's no public record, no final interview where Loretta named a list of people she hated. That whole narrative is a piece of folklore that's grown around her legacy. But the rivalries, oh, they were very real. The feuds were legendary. The stories of backstage tension and professional betrayal are stitched right into the fabric of country music history. Loretta didn't need to write a list. She lived her grievances out loud in her songs, in her interviews, and in her unapologetic silence. So, while there's no secret cassette tape, what we do have is a trail of evidence. It's a 60-year career of standing her ground and refusing to be anyone but herself. And along that path, she clashed with some of the biggest names in the business. These weren't just catfights or petty squabbles. These were battles for the soul of country music, fought by a woman who came from nothing and refused to compromise on her truth. This isn't the story of a hate list. This is the story of the battles that forged the legend of Loretta Lynn. Before we get to the names, you have to understand the woman herself. Loretta Lynn wasn't just a singer. She was a force of nature. Born in Butcher Hollow, Kentucky, she was a coal miner's daughter in the most literal sense, and that hardscrabble life never left her. It was in her voice, her lyrics, and her spirit. She was a young mother of 4 by the time she was 20. And when she started her career in her mid-20s, she had a $17 guitar her husband Dew had bought her and a batch of songs written on a legal pad that were painfully, brutally honest, in an industry where women were often expected to sing pretty songs about heartache from a polite distance. Loretta wrote about the messy, complicated, and often ugly reality of being a woman. She sang about marital strife, the double standards faced by divorced women in Rated X, and, most controversially, birth control in her hit song The Pill. That song was banned by dozens of radio stations, yet it became one of her biggest hits, a testament to her connection with real women. Her music was torn straight from the pages of her own chaotic marriage. A union marked by deep love, but also by her husband's alcoholism and infidelity. This wasn't just songwriting. With survival. This raw honesty is the key to understanding her rivalries. Loretta saw country music not just as a business, but as a sacred pact with her audience. It had to be real. She had an almost allergic reaction to anything she saw as fake or polished. She didn't trust artists who hadn't paid their dues, who hadn't lived the stories they were singing. For Loretta, a song wasn't a product, it was a testimony. Her influence is impossible to overstate. In 1972, she was the first woman ever to win the Country Music Association's Entertainer of the Year award. The Academy of Country Music even named her Artist of the Decade for the 1970s. She kicked down doors so others could walk through them, but she also guarded that door fiercely. And if she felt you were disrespecting tradition or her, she had a memory like a steel trap. Her feuds were born from this deep-seated conviction that she had fought too hard to let anyone dilute the music she had bled for. In the kingdom of 1970s country music, there were 2 reigning queens, and their thrones were precariously close. On one side, Loretta Lynn, the coal miner's daughter. On the other, Tammy Wynette, the First Lady of Country music, known for her tear-soaked ballads. To the public, they were titans. Behind the scenes, their relationship was a study in contrasts. A rivalry that was as much about philosophy as it was about chart positions. The tension came from their completely different approaches to stardom. Tammy, with her perfectly coiffed hair and songs of suffering like Stand By Your Man, represented a certain Nashville ideal. She was polished, poised, and popular. But in Loretta's eyes, Tammy's fame was built on an image she found hard to respect. Loretta, who fought her way out of poverty with confrontational anthems like Fist City, saw this as a form of artifice. There's a widely circulated story that perfectly captures this clash. When Stand By Your Man became a massive hit, Loretta was supposedly baffled by its message. A popular piece of Loretta lore has her quipping, "I was singing Fist City. She was singing Stand By Your Man. I'd be saying, Stand by your man. Or I'm gonna hit you." Whether it's an exact quote or not, it perfectly captures her perspective. This difference created a real friction between them. Industry producers, smelling a blockbuster, pushed hard for a duet album. But Loretta consistently shut it down. The most famous story is of Loretta telling her manager, "Me and Tammy are like oil and water. We might sell records, but we'd never survive rehearsals." That one sentence speaks volumes. It suggests a personal friction so intense that not even a massive payday could overcome it. While there's no strong evidence of a personal feud, beyond professional competition, the stories paint a picture of a chilly distance. For the Queen of Country, there could only be one authentic voice, and she was determined it would be hers. If the rivalry with Tammy Wynette was a Cold War, the feud with Olivia Newton-John was a battle against a foreign invasion. This wasn't personal, it was ideological. For Loretta, Olivia Newton-John, the beautiful British-born, Australian-raised pop singer, represented a danger to the very soul of country music. The flashpoint was the 1974 CMA Awards. The nominees for Female Vocalist of the Year were country royalty Loretta, Dolly Parton, Tanya Tucker, and Anne Murray. And then there was Olivia, whose pop hits had crossed over to the country charts. When her name was announced as the winner, shockwave went through the Grand Ole Opry House. For country traditionalists, it was a slap in the face. Olivia wasn't just an outsider. In their view, she wasn't a country artist at all. Her songs were smooth and lacked the raw grit that was the hallmark of the genre. The win was so controversial that it led to a schism. George Jones and Tammy Wynette were so incensed they formed the short-lived Association of Country Entertainers to preserve the distinct identity of country music. Loretta was at the heart of this traditionalist camp. While she wasn't as public in her protest as George Jones, her disapproval was widely understood. Whispers from the time suggest Loretta skipped a major CMA event specifically because Olivia was being honored, with the unofficial reason being that she ain't clapping for no pop star playing cowboy. While this is part of the folklore, it encapsulates her feelings perfectly. It wasn't about hating Olivia. It was about hating what her success represented. The popification of a genre Loretta had fought to keep authentic. To Loretta, Olivia Newton-John wasn't just a singer who won an award. She was a symbol of Nashville selling its soul for radio play. Out of all the names on this list, Conway Twitty's is perhaps the most complex. On stage, Loretta and Conway were magic. They were the dream duo, winning the CMA Award for Vocal Duo of the Year 4 years in a row. Their chemistry was so electric that audiences were convinced they were having an affair. But Loretta always insisted their relationship was professional. Behind the curtain, however, a different story was playing out. According to some accounts, the dream partnership was a minefield of bruised egos. The tension wasn't about a lack of affection, but a struggle for credit in a partnership the world often saw as his show, with her as the supporting act. A big source of Loretta's frustration was how their success was portrayed. Conway was an established male star. When they won an award, headlines often credited him as the genius. Loretta, a formidable hitmaker herself, was framed as simply the right match. For a woman who fought so hard for her own identity, this was a constant irritation. She's rumored to have once snapped, "Even when he's following you, they always put the man first." As their fame grew, so did the friction. Reports from their touring days paint a picture of a partnership under strain, with Conway allegedly pushing their sound in a glossier, more commercial direction. Loretta fought back, reportedly telling him in a heated studio session, "This ain't the Conway show. I got my own damn name." Their partnership, so full of life on vinyl, became another instance where Loretta felt she had to fight to be seen as an equal, not just a counterpart. Even after his death, while she always spoke of him with love, the stories of their offstage battles remain a crucial part of their shared legacy. The rivalry with Reba McEntire was different. It wasn't born from a backstage slight. This was a conflict rooted in the undeniable passage of time and the rise of a new generation. In the 1980s, the face of country music was changing. The sound was bigger, the production slicker, and no one embodied this new era more than Reba McEntire. Reba was a powerhouse to Nashville and a new generation of fans. She was the future. To Loretta, however, Reb forged in hardship, two icons who refused to bend to Nashville's glossy expectations. Which is what made the supposed betrayal when it came so devastating. The story, which lives in the realm of Nashville legend, goes like this. In the late 1970s, Loretta was invited to perform on a televised gospel special hosted by Johnny Cash. Gospel music was the foundation of her life, and performing it alongside a man she admired was a profound honor. Then, just 2 days before taping, she got a call. She'd been cut from the show. No clear explanation, no personal call from Johnny. She later heard whispers that the decision came from Johnny himself, who had allegedly told the network she was too political and too outspoken for a gospel special. In other words, she was too much Loretta. He knew her story. And yet, he had silenced her on a platform that meant so much. She never called him, she never confronted him, but she never forgot it. Years later, the legend continues. Johnny Cash mailed her a handwritten letter, heartfelt apology for the pain he'd caused. Loretta's response? She did nothing. She never replied. Instead, she folded the letter and placed it inside a small cedar box, where it supposedly remained for decades. This story has never been corroborated, but it persists as a powerful symbol of Loretta's capacity to hold a grudge not out of malice, but out of a profound sense of justice for a wound that even a legend like Johnny Cash couldn't heal. In the grand narrative of country music, it's almost irresistible to imagine a rivalry between Loretta Lynn and Dolly Parton. They were two of the most powerful women of their generation, both brilliant songwriters born into Appalachian poverty, who conquered the world. The press often tried to frame them as competitors, but unlike the other names on this list, the feud between Loretta and Dolly is a fascinating case of smoke without fire. Rivalry that existed more in the public imagination than in reality. Publicly, the two showed nothing but mutual love and respect. Dolly once said of their shared experience, "I think we could both smile with each other and say, 'Hey girl, we're doing all right, ain't we?'" That captures the essence of their actual relationship. Camaraderie, not animosity. They collaborated multiple times, most famously on the 1993 album Honky Tonk Angels with Tammy Wynette, a project Dolly spearheaded to honor her peers. That doesn't mean their relationship was entirely without complexity. There were whispers of professional friction fueled by their different approaches. Loretta was raw and confrontational. Dolly often used humor and a more universally appealing style. But unlike her other feuds, any suspicion Loretta may have had about Dolly's polished image never curdled into genuine animosity. The truth seems to be that while the industry loved the idea of pitting these two titans against each other, Loretta and Dolly recognized each other as survivors of the same battles. The Dolly Parton feud is the exception that proves the rule. It shows that for Loretta, respect could and did outweigh rumor. Merle Haggard and Loretta Lynn should have been allies for life. They were two of the purest voices of their generation. Architects of the authentic working-class sound that stood against Nashville's slick polish. Their bond was built on shared honesty and a dose of outlaw mischief. But as the story goes, that respect was shattered in the early 1980s by a single, cutting remark. The setting and exact quote vary in retellings, but the legend is that Merle Haggard made a joke on live radio about Loretta's public persona. Something along the lines of, "Loretta's been milking that poor girl act too long. We get it, Cole. Dust and babies. What else you got?" To Merle, it may have been a joke between friends. To Loretta, it would have been a profound betrayal, dismissing her entire life story as an act. The joke allegedly created a deep rift, which was widened when Merle reportedly brushed off a deeply personal duet she wanted to record, calling it church lady stuff. He didn't just say no to a song. He dismissed her truth as unmarketable. While this account is not verified, it speaks to Loretta's core principle. They still performed together on occasion, but insiders noted the old warmth was gone. Merle Haggard, one of the few she considered an equal in authenticity, had supposedly treated her story like fiction. For the Queen of Country, that was a sin that was hard to forgive. Loretta Lynn's story is a powerful reminder that behind every legend, there are battles fought and lines drawn. These rivalries weren't just about ego. They were about a fierce love for country music and for the truth. What do you think? Were Loretta's grudges justified, or was she too tough on her peers? Let us know in the comments below. And if you love getting into the real stories of country music legends, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a video. So, was there a secret list recorded on a cassette tape? Almost certainly not. That's the stuff of myth. But the absence of a list doesn't diminish the truth of the conflicts. The 7 stories we've explored paint a portrait of a woman who is fiercely protective of her legacy and the authenticity of the music she helped define. From Tammy Wynette's polished image to Olivia Newton's pop invasion. From Conway Twitty's ego to Reba McEntire's rise. And from the legendary hurts involving Johnny Cash and Merle Haggard, each conflict reveals a different facet of Loretta's unyielding character. These weren't just feuds. They were boundary lines. They were her way of declaring who she was and what she stood for. She was a trailblazer and a voice for millions of women whose lives were never on the radio. Her willingness to sing her truth is what made her a legend. That same honesty fueled her grudges. She didn't play the political games of Nashville. If she felt you had wronged her or the music she loved, she'd let you know either with a sharp-tongued quote or a silence that was just as loud in the end. Loretta Lynn's legacy isn't just in her songs or her awards. It's in her unwavering commitment to being herself. The feuds and rivalries aren't just footnotes. They are the very evidence of her fight. They are the echoes of a woman who clawed her way out of Butcher Hollow, Kentucky, and never once forgot where she came from or what she was fighting for. She didn't need to write down a list. Her life was her testimony.